Okay, I was just about to lay my head down and go to sleep, and I realize I'm forgetting one person out of this whole thing that should be up here. So I'll have to fix that. But here's the thing. So I was going to go to sleep, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was like, wait, nope, I have to make this post because if I don't, I'm going to forget it, and then I'm going to be mad at myself. Because I was reading document 1065-1 today, and it was gut-wrenching because it's the group text with Justin, Jamie, and Justin's basically reaching out for prayers and support. And it made me realize, you know, for being in the worst possible situation, in the worst possible scenario, it's only because they are who they are that they're positioned in the most positive way possible in the worst case scenario. And it sickens me to think that, honestly, if it had been any other person in Hollywood, if it had been any other director, actor, whatever, it is most likely that the CRD complaint would have been filed and the New York Times article would have been dropped, and done deal. Case closed. They SH'd her. They ran a woefully dysfunctional, harmful environment and didn't do anything to protect the actresses in question. Because that's the other thing, is the magical thing that they have in their corner isn't just that they are who they are, it's that they have Steve Sarowitz. I don't know. I don't know who else could have possibly picked this up and would have had the financial ability to stand up to the legal team. I mean, because that's the thing, is that you look. I have a post that I haven't finished recording, and I can't finish recording it because I was reading the Jamie Heath timeline, and it boils so many emotions out of me, and it's layers of betrayal and grief and disbelief. Because like that's the thing, is Jamie Heath gives the timeline, and what do you mean that on 5/24, this one and Colleen didn't really have a relationship up until this point, like really hadn't been interacting with anybody or each other until this point. And then 2 weeks later, Colleen's in Blake's corner, like, yeah, I'm not going to do anything unless Blake says, or like the way Blake wants it. So within less than 2 weeks, the friendship, the rapport that has been built up for years is otherwise dissolved. And then by premiere time, the entire cast is like, go to the basement. What do you mean? And to realize that Jamie Heath's timeline basically paints the picture that this was happening for years. Like, by the time we get to the CRD complaint in the New York Times article, they've already been experiencing what allegedly she's trying to do in terms of disempowering them, making them feel alone, isolated. They've been experiencing that for years and in silence. I can't. Like, if you wrote this and tried to tell me that this was based on a true story, I would be like, yeah, right. Like, this is the most unbelievable story. Are you kidding? But it happened. And if it had been anybody else in Hollywood, they wouldn't have had the financial backing to go up against legal. And we, for sure, more than likely, even by February, would probably be like, done deal. Those dudes are bad. Like, they're never gonna do a thing in Hollywood again. And it's only because they are who they are that they are positioned as positively as they can be in the worst case scenario. And it just sickens me. It absolutely sickens me, because what do you mean there's this many people that would be willing to back that up? I like, the biggest upset, the reason why I had to stop the recording and why I was getting so emotional reading the Jamie Heath timeline was because 5/24, there's been no interaction between her and Colleen, but then 2 weeks later, Colleen's otherwise all bought in with Blake. And then by August, the whole cast is like, to the basement. We're not hanging with you. You can't sit here. What do you mean? That is their production. That's their premiere. And if we are going to believe what Blake says in her dockets, that they were by all means her bosses, her employers, in what situation, in what circumstance does an employee tell their boss, go to the basement, you can't be here? What? In what situation do all of the employees rally against the boss and tell them, or like send the message, not even tell them, just like send the message, like, we don't want anything to do with you? And that's the bigger thing, is that it seems to me that clearly none of them verified. They just heard whatever they heard and went with it. There was no verification of like, hey, is this really what happened? It just, it is scary to think that if it had happened to any other figures in Hollywood, in the industry, that they could have got away with all of this. And not only got away with it, but we would have been none the wiser. That is scary.